Are you getting ready to tell the rabbi?
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to the Beit Midrash. Welcome back to Parshat Bechukotai. Martin, I don't know if you're going to need to restart your computer or something if you can't hear us. Sorry. Or you can try calling in, but you'll have to hunt down the number. Hope everyone had a good week. Hope everyone's doing well. Hope everyone got to read a little Rabbi Sacks on Bechukotai. And can I say, let's jump in. Any thoughts, comments, reactions?
Well, I was saying that I thought that what Sacks has to say in this, his conclusion and his reasoning seems a little bit forced. Seems goes through Nietzsche and Maimonides before he gets to his comments, but I thought his discussion of the Maimonides discussion was very interesting, and the various possible and interpretations of the word that I have forgotten, but I can look up.
Keri.
Yeah.
Page 183.
Right. Yeah, I have a couple of different translations of the Torah, and I looked up in various translations and to see what people had come and had to say, and they generally are in line with the rebelliousness, obstinance, disobedience, or as opposed to the Maimonides, which is a more interesting, I think, translation, and a more in some ways a more forgiving one.
What was your source for your translation?
I beg your pardon?
Where did you look for translation of Keri?
Oh, I looked at Alter and Fox and one other one, which I'm not sure what I don't remember what it is.
Because I thought it's also accident or mishap, not just rebelliousness, obstinacy, not just things that had the very different interpretation. If you say accident, that's not necessarily rebelliousness or being obstinate or indifferent.
Yeah. So I think where a lot of those translations are coming from is the rebelliousness, obstinacy, indifference, hard-heartedness, reluctance. I think where those are coming from is context. So as Rabbi Sacks points out, this word only appears in this parsha. And in context, it seems to mean something like, if you refuse to follow my directions, if you continue to rebel, if you continue to be obstinate or indifferent or whatever, then this is what's going to happen. So, I mean, any of those kind of work based on the general context of what's going on in the parsha. But yes, I think what you're saying is like an accident or chance.
It's more in line with what Maimonides has.
Yeah. Even in modern Hebrew, one of the ways you greet somebody is ma koreh, like what's happening, like what's going on. And so Keri is like what's going on. It's like what just happens.
Would you pronounce what is happening? That's
Pardon?
Say that word again. Ma
koreh. Ma koreh means like what's happening.
Okay, I know the word. I just would pronounce. My pronunciation is poorer.
Not sure mine is good. It's just different, but like it still comes from the same root. It's like the same shorish. It means like something that is happening. So like I think that's where Maimonides is coming from. Also, is like kari is like what happened, like something that happened. And usually like this, it's like what's just kind of going on by chance, not that you planned it or something like that. So, what did you think of Maimonides? Rabbi Sacks' explanation of Maimonides, that if you behave as if everything was by chance, then I'll treat you as if I'll leave you to chance. I'll leave you to kind of figure things out on your own. What was your response to that? Hey, TK, good to see you.
I mean, that made sense to me because we're supposed to believe that everything's laid out for us, that the Torah lays out the way that we are supposed to act and the way we're supposed to live. But if we're all of these things obstinate and different or reluctant to follow that, then the chances of us living a meaningful life are less.
Fair enough. But we're kind of left to chance also. Martin, can you hear us now? I'll take that as a no. Can you hear us or no? So just sending him a quick message, see if that works for him. Any other thoughts on the Maimonides part of this? I'm kind of thinking of this, I've said before, I kind of tend to think of things in terms of relationship and in terms of action. So thinking of it that way, if somebody is cold and indifferent towards you, how do you usually act towards them?
The same way.
And if somebody is nice and warm and kind to you, you try to treat them the same way. And so, in some level, God is saying, I love you, I care about you. But if you want to treat me like this is all chance and like I'm not doing anything, then I'm not going to do anything. I'll leave it to you to be treated by chance, and whatever happens to you happens to you. And good luck.
So do you think that is on an individual basis or on a community basis? Because he then goes on to talk about the fate of Israel and how it, if treated by chance, Israel would disappear.
I think the short answer is yes. I do think there's an individual level to this, in that in our personal lives, there is a level at which, if we turn away from God, God turns away from us. If we turn towards God, God turns towards us. But we can't really separate ourselves from the communal either. We are not isolated beings. We are people that live in community generally. And a faithful community will hold on to the fact that God is still with them and God is working towards them. Even if things are going badly, they still have the faith that things will turn around. When you lose that faith as a community, then you lose that hope that things can ever get better.
I thought when it's talking about the blessings and punishments or curses, that that's definitely a community thing, because I thought it was intended food for everybody, rain for everybody, security for everybody. So I know that in order to get us to do the various and follow the various commandments, and the commandment that I've long associated with this is the commandment to study Torah, like we're doing here, that has to be on an individual thing. So you're right that it's both, but I think certain things are more individual and certain things are applicable to the community.
Yes, and the community can study Torah together too.
As our small community shows here today.
Exactly.
And it is important for the community to provide the structure for that. And I don't mean just a structured class, but just the group or the minion even.
Right.
But sometimes I sometimes read this section, and the second paragraph of the Shema, by the way, is similarly. If you are faithful and you do these mitzvot which I am commanding you this day, then I will bring rain I'll bring rain in its time, and you'll have the first fruits and the later fruits and all good harvest, and all will be well. And if you don't follow my commandments, well, then I will stop the rain from falling, and you won't have good land, and the land won't yield its produce, and so on and so forth. I read both of these sections kind of similarly, that if you follow these commandments and you build a life of faith and you build a life of connection with God, then whatever rain falls, you will be grateful for. You will feel like you are getting what you need in life. Faith. You will get the strength, the fulfillment, the peace that Rabbi Sacks talks about. But if you don't have that life of faith, if you don't have belief, if you don't have something grounding you, then no matter how much it rains, it will never feel like enough. No matter how much harvest you bring in, it won't feel like it was a good harvest. You'll always be thinking there's something else you need. When really it's just filling in something else, filling in a hole that you currently are spiritually lacking. So I'll give you kind of an example that I sometimes think of is I did a chaplaincy internship in a hospital in California, and one of my patients came in. He was hospitalized for withdrawal symptoms. He was having severe withdrawal symptoms, and I was talking with him, and he said he was a pastor at a church, and he had a really good, he thought he had a really good life, and walked in one day on his wife cheating on him. Left his wife, they got a divorce, and his life kind of fell apart. And one of the things I'll never forget, he said, was, I drink to fill the hole where God should be.
Hmm.
And so I think very often we try, if we don't have that life of faith, if we don't have that life of belief and that grounds us, then whatever that hole is that spiritually we are lacking, we try to fill it with something else. Some people fill it with drugs. Some people fill it with work. Some people fill it with sex. Some people fill it with gambling. Some people fill it with shopping, you know,
Food.
food, and that's, I think a little bit of how I understand these verses is when you follow God's belief, then God will be with you. You have that strong faith and a belief in God, which the mitzvot help guide you towards, then you'll be able to withstand some of the struggles in life. But if you don't, then you're going to feel lost and all these, not as much, I don't want to say punishments as much as curses, negative consequences are going to be, you're just going to feel like you're alone in the world and not have any system to ground you.
We said this patient was a minister.
Yeah, but after, he his life kind of fell apart and he started doubting his faith in God and he started questioning, how could God have allowed this to happen to me? And from there, it just kind of spiraled down into alcohol and drugs and whatever else he was doing. He lost his faith along the way.
And how did you help him get it back?
I would love to say I did. I sat with him for a while. We talked for a while. Came back to see him the next day. He was gone.
But he understood himself. I mean, it was his. You may have helped him express it by your presence and your listening, but he said it. He said, "This is what I've done," which I think it means that he has a point of enlightenment. Well, whether he'll find the strength to go in that path or not, we'll never know. But it was his realization that that's what I've done that was important, not something that you could possibly say to him. If you just said that to him, if he's not there and ready and listening, it would have just been words. But the fact that he said it and you gave him, a framework of acceptance and listening to say it into, I think that's, if he changed, that would have been that realization in my mind. Of course, nobody knows because he wasn't there. And isn't that true for just about everybody you talk to? You don't really know what they do with it unless they come back and tell you.
Yeah, I had somebody was saying, I love the sermon the rabbi gave at some point, and they said something. The other person like, "What'd you say?" I'm like, "I have no idea. I don't remember."
Yes.
I'll predict what happened to that guy. I'll bet that what you said made a really big impact on him, and he couldn't face it and he went out and drank some more. And someday,
Yeah.
and then someday in the future, he was able to incorporate it and he was able to find his way again.
My prediction is I think about him a lot more than he thinks about me.
Ain't it the case?
But can I say
I don't
something?
remember what I said to him. I doubt I gave any good advice. I think I just listened, and he sticks with me. I don't know if I stuck with him, and that's fine. I hope he's doing well somewhere.
The other thing that I liked in this in this reading was the initial statement, which I had really never come across quite in this this way. that if we possess our why of life, we can put up with almost any how.
That was an interesting interpretation of Nietzsche, wasn't it? Or was it the Nietzsche, or was it somewhere else? Was it not?
Well, it
Nietzsche?
was Nietzsche, and it was also, I think, also in Pascal.
Yeah, maybe that's where I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, both of.
What did you guys think of that?
I think that really explains, among other things, how some people were able to survive, for example, in the Holocaust. And
I agree with that.
and you know, many other examples that would come to mind, but that certainly is one of them.
I really liked the top of page 182, where it gives a discussion about unchaining the earth from the sun. What's it moving now? Are we moving now, et cetera? And it goes through all this astrophysics stuff, which I had recently an opportunity to hear from an astrophysicist. But even as a geologist, I know a lot of this, some of which I am fine with, some of which I'm not. Has it become colder? That kind of thing. No, man has done something different. But we know that, well, my question is, is it making the connection between the sun and God, or just changes? Because as it says, a world without God is a universe without why. But the why didn't come from the Torah. The why is, we understand the science behind a lot of this. We understand that if you are rotating over time, friction is going to make you slow down. And as we slow down, the whole universe is expanding and days are getting longer. We're not spinning as quickly as we used to, et cetera. So, I mean, hey, this book, Rabbi Sacks is quoting somebody on science and he doesn't even know it.
Well, he's quoting Nietzsche, but you know, my philosophical history is a little rusty. Like, I don't know how much Nietzsche knew scientifically.
Well, neither one of them mentioned science in these few paragraphs, but from a scientific perspective, yes, it's okay to say it's happening, who's behind it, but that wasn't the way the way he had it. The world without God is in ultimate sense a universe without a why. The why is there, and the why is A, because God made it that way, or B, because gravity or friction is slowing things down. And then, as I know, Eddie is just itching to say, well, who caused friction? Who set that up? Eddie, you've said that kind of thing once before, so I just give you credit for taking it down to the basics. But I thought it was interesting that this got him to the conclusion of a world without God is a universe without a why. Just because these questions weren't ones that he had, or this discussion from Nietzsche isn't one that he had other answers to.
So do you agree with Nietzsche's conclusion? Or Sacks's interpretation of Nietzsche?
No, I don't. Because when Sacks wrote this book, he should have known where these changes were coming from. What did we do when we unchained the earth from its sun? Okay, that was 14 billion years ago. Then where is it going now? By this century, we know where things are going. And that was discovered, I think, back in the 1930s or 40s. We looked at spectra of what you know, how you can tell this train whistle, the train is moving towards you or away from you, or the fire truck sirens are moving
Oh.
toward you or away from
Is
you.
it double,
It's,
the Doppler effect?
right, and it's a red shift, meaning going away. So it's shifting toward the red part of the spectrum. And that's moving away. And we can see that with planets. We can see that with other stars. We can see the universe expand. So he found it, he used it because he wanted to talk about a separation between, I don't know, the earth and God. I won't try to say why he used it, but all I'm saying is that we understand a lot of that today differently than Nietzsche did. Sure.
Yes. And let me challenge that for a moment. So let's say, like, let's assume for a moment that God does not exist and that everything scientifically has happened because of because the way of science works, that there are natural laws that just tend to follow these laws, and these laws have so happened by some minuscule chance to explode the energy into the world that it is and created this environment in which we as humans are able to, or I should say, in which life is able to survive and then evolve into us humans sitting with us today. Millions of people believe that, and that God had nothing to do with it. I'm not judging one way or the other. What's the point? If that's true, what's the point?
Mhm. Yeah, I didn't mean to leave it with, that I disagree with a world without God as a universe. No, I didn't mean to leave it like that. I was just stressing on the other point.
Yeah, I think Sacks's point is not as much the science part as the point of, okay, if what is the point of our existence if that's the
Can I,
case?
can
TK,
y'all hear
finish.
me? Yeah. Okay, so what is the point of existence? Why don't you ask an easy question?
I did.
I think, yeah, it was simple, but not easy. I ask myself this maybe once a day. And I look at it I say without God, but again, I don't really know what God is, so it may not be without God. I think it does have to do, I believe that if you have a universe without a God telling you exactly what the meaning is, then you must find the meaning. And I feel like I find meaning every day in different ways. And it is my choice to find that meaning. For example, sometimes I find that the meaning is about creating myself, the act of creating. Sometimes I have to chide myself because I feel like I need to be producing something. I need to be doing something. And sometimes I have to stop and say, you're worthy without having accomplished something. And I think that mirrors what people of faith feel when they are able to have a perspective like you described earlier, where we're able to, it is enough. And when you were talking about the harvest is enough, that whole feeling, it has to do with what's inside of us, and whether it has to do with us looking at a traditional way of worship and spirituality towards God, or whether it has to do with I'm worthy just by being here because the universe has birthed me. And so things are as they ought by my being able to sit here and breathe. I don't know if that made any sense whatsoever, but it's the 2 cents I throw in.
Well, TK, your 2 cents is very similar to the 2 cents that I was going to throw in.
Yay, we have 4 cents.
Wow.
We're almost at a nickel.
We've doubled our centage in the last few seconds, so I think we're doing well.
Yay.
Only in adding, I would only have added, in addition to the things that you said, that I think that even without a traditional, I mean, what I think of a God changes every day, from 0 to whatever. But even without a traditional concept of God, it's still possible to feel that it is important to support other people, to find meaning in community, and caring for this planet that I won't say that we were given, that happened to give us. So I think all of, that's just a small smattering of things that it seems to be possible to find meaning in without necessarily going to God. Although on the other hand, sometimes I think God is all of those things. So there you have it.
Yes, Bart.
At least 4 cents.
Make it 6.
Okay, my comment may not be worth 1 cent to get you up to a nickel, but Margaret, you used the word that I was pushing for twice, and it is meaning. And there's a difference between why and meaning. And Sacks says that. He says that the world without God is a universe without why. It can have whatever, but not meaning. So he's right with you in saying there's a difference between why and meaning. And that I appreciate. I might.
Is there though, or is
understand
meaning
different
the
why.
answer to the why?
Repeat that, please.
I said, is meaning the answer to the why?
Not for everybody.
We'll say more.
Meaning, sort of. I mean, one asks, why am I here? And I think I hope everyone at some point has asked that question of themselves. That drove me crazy when I was a teenager, because I knew there had to be an answer and I just hadn't figured it out yet. I don't, and sometimes I sit back and I think, instead of trying to look at why me, maybe why life, why does life exist? Science says it was an accident. Science says that if there hadn't been an accident, a disbalance at the very beginning, that everything would have been positive and negative, matter and antimatter, and it would have completely destroyed itself. And I think probably some of the Kabbalistic ideas are, that God purposely broke the world, or he made a imperfection in order for us to exist, because otherwise God is perfect. And if God is perfect, the perfection has to break in order for us to exist, which is interesting because it is analogous to what science says, that there was a little more balance on the matter part than the antimatter part, and that's what allowed all of the relationships between protons and neutrons and all the particles of life to do what they did. And it boils down to mathematics. I read somewhere that there were like 6 numbers that are reflective of relationships in the universe in terms of how it works. And if those things were not there, we would not have this universe. And so their answer is that this universe was just one bubble out of the soup, whatever the soup is. And we are here because this happens to be the one that had all the right numbers, and therefore we could exist. I forgot where the heck I started on this, so I'll shut up.
I'll say, by the way, the rabbis have a similar view on that.
Yeah.
Like they argue that this is not the first world that God created.
Oh, interesting.
There are previous creations which self-destructed for various reasons. And this world, though, is, because we're in it, this world is the best. But
It's working.
God experimented and tried different configurations, but this is the one that actually worked.
Sort of like Lilith.
Lilith is a little different, but yes, somewhat similar concept.
It was the first. How far back does that go?
Far. I'm trying to remember. I remember teaching a text. I think it was from the Talmud or from a Midrash. So I mean, it would have been pretty. It would have been first
early on,
3-digit century somewhere. In which
And didn't the angels tell him not to do it? You've already made so many mistakes. You ought to.
There's that's another one too. But there's one where God creates a world of I can find this. It's a great text. But essentially, God creates a world of judgment, which, what happens in a world of judgment? Everybody kind of attacks everybody else until it all falls apart. So God instead created a world of kindness. And what happened in the world of kindness? Everybody starved to death because everybody was giving everything to everybody else.
I love it.
So what did God do? God created a world that was a balance between the two. And the example they give is they actually use the example of glass. If you have cold glass and you pour hot water into it, then it shatters. And same if you have a hot glass and you pour cold water into. But so what do? God had to create temper the glass down to create this world that was a balance of the two attributes.
Is this in the Talmud or is this in Kabbalistic thinking with
I'll see if I can find the source. I remember I looked at the source sheet recently. I just have to find it again. But I can look while we're talking. But the Zohar does have a different concept of worlds existing, and using a verse from the Torah, of worlds that pre-existed this one, and God having to destroy them and rebuild them each time.
Which is interesting. Perhaps one day science will catch up to the rabbis.
You never know.
Well, but don't we have to live that way every day? Because if, we have these principles that are supposed to be guiding us, and one is, to give, to be kind. But one struggles every day, Lord, when those commercials come on TV where you've got the starving children all over the world, and then you've got animals that are left out in cruelty and all these things. And I'm like, why? How can I justify having any money with all these needs out there, why do we not give everything away and a balance? Which I love the tempering of the glass. Somehow you have to find the right balance in order to even interact with the world.
I just found the text. So it's from Bereshit Rabbah. So it was somewhere between 300 and 500 CE, give or take. And it's based off, pardon? Actually, let me do this. This might help you get.
That's about the time of the Greeks, Alexander the Great, and so forth.
Yeah. Oh no, this is CE, not BCE. Alexander the Great would have been BC.
Oh, I'm sorry, CE. So what was going on then?
Can you guys see this? It would have been shortly after the redaction of the Mishnah and the rise of Christianity. Because I think the Council of Nicene was around 300 something.
Mm.
And I think
Constantine
Constantine converted somewhere around that time also.
Okay, yeah.
130.
So can you guys see the text on the screen?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so these are the generations of the heavens and the earth when God made them. On the day that Hashem God made the earth and the heavens. There was a king who had, so that's the verse that they're droshing. There was a king who had 2 empty cups. The king said, if I put hot water in them, they will shatter. If I put colder water in them, they will crack. So what did the king do? He mixed the hot water into the cold, put it in the cups, and they remained intact. Similarly, the Holy Blessing One said, if I create the world with the attribute of mercy, there will be many sinners. This is it. So if the world is all mercy, there'll be no punishment for anybody who does something wrong. So people will just keep sinning and doing wrong things because there's no consequence. If I create the world with the attribute of judgment, how could the world survive? If we got punished for every single thing that we did, we wouldn't last very long. Rather, I will create it with a combination of judgment and mercy, and it might remain intact.
So God was the first experimenter.
The first scientist, yes.
The first scientist, yeah.
Yeah. Reminds me also of, have you guys seen the movie Contact from the 90s?
Oh, yeah.
Where it's all about space and whether there's life on other planets. And, Jodie Foster's line that keeps getting repeated is, do you think there's another, if there's other lives out there and other beings? And she goes, if not, what an awful waste of space.
Exactly.
So, look, there is some arrogance to this on our end that we live in the perfect ideal world and that God had created these other worlds and we're the ideal one. It's also our world, so we're a little preferential to it. But what if God did create other worlds that are out there and existing and thriving because, these are the different experiments, we're all out there in different worlds and God's not, I don't say toying, but God's seeing what works best.
And there might be a world out there that we just don't know about yet that's even better than this one. So we're very selfish to think that we got the best.
The probability is high.
The probability is high that there is one. I hope so. Then my kid will have a job.
I like to think that too, and there's cultures we can learn from, and that's the whole point of science fiction, or at least the kind that I like, that's looking at what it means to be human, is to explore other cultures and other ways to see what we can learn from that. But then I think, okay, right now somewhere. And there are at least two galaxies. I mean, I'm sure there's many more, but I know there's 2 right now that are colliding. And it's really hard for me to think that, 2 galaxies, how many civilizations are in there? And what the scale of that destruction is something that makes even the Holocaust kind of pale.
Yeah, well, we'll be
that-
one of those galaxies according to astrophysicists. So I mean,
Yes, I think Andromeda is heading toward our way. And at some point, we are gonna, although we don't really know, because now they're having to reassess the whole thing about how fast they thought the universe was expanding. They've found very recently, they've found some new data that puts that into question. We don't know for sure what will happen.
Or
But,
when.
Or when. But coming back to Rabbi Sacks,
Okay. Oh,
let's think of all that for a moment. If we just buy that this just happens and this is just the way the world is, and this is the way science exists, then what doesn't matter what I do with my life? Like if you take God out of this, what does it matter? I'm here for, as it says in Psalms, what 80 years, or 70 years, 80 if given the strength, something like that, like I'm here for what's a tiny little blip, not even a full second. If you, I'm saying, like Neil deGrasse Tyson has this thing where you compress all of existence into a calendar year. We're in like the last minute of the calendar year, if that. And my
that's
life,
the human race.
I'm
sorry, that's the entire human race, not our individual little lives.
Yes. So like I'm not even a blip on a radar at that point. What does it matter what I do? And what religion generally tries to do is say it does matter what you do. You are important. You are not a meaningless speck in a meaningless society or a meaningless planet. You are here for a reason. Find it, look for it, search for it. Search for meaning and you will discover strength. Even if you don't, notice that Rabbi Sacks doesn't say, if you find meaning, you will discover strength. He says, search for meaning and you will find strength. You might not even need to find the answer. You just need to try to find the answer. And then life will be worth living. You'll be able to get through those difficult times. You'll be able to feel that, the why makes you be able to bear the how. But if you ignore that, if you don't even bother searching for meaning, then what does your existence actually mean? And don't, as Rabbi Sacks also says, I'm trying to find it, is I saw it before, now I just got to find it again. It's not, there's the quote. I can't find it now that I need it. It's not quick. There it is. Pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient.
Oh yeah, I like that.
That was a good quote. Might save that one. That was a good one. What's meaningful is not usually the easy thing. It's usually something that challenges you and makes you think hard and long about who you are and why you're here. Do that, because it makes your life a heck of a lot more interesting than trying to do the quick, easy thing.
And he goes on to say, given that such and such happened, here's what you need to do. And I think that's what society needs to be looking at. It happened, now do the right thing. And that gets you back to Torah study. You're trying to figure out what to do to make it be the right thing. It's all in the Torah.
Yeah. You can't always control what happens to you, but you can control how you react to it. And that's what faith and Torah is here for, is to help guide you in how to react and how to live your life whenever on a daily basis, but also in particular when things happen to you. Any closing thoughts?
I had one thought
All of that
to
stuff.
express. Um, when we're talking about the madman and the death of God, the line that really hit me was, "Do we not feel the breath of empty space?" Because I know that I have been there before, where I felt the breath of empty space, and when you come back from that, that's when you know what you really believe or what you believe in.
Eddie, what
Which-
page is that on? I remember reading it.
182, right at the end of the quote.
Oh, yeah.
That you used about the earth falling apart or the universe falling apart.
That makes me think about William Shatner, of the original Star Trek captain, who at age 90, very recently, went up in a spaceship and saw Earth from a whole different perspective. And he came back profoundly moved and changed from that experience, which is, I think, what you're saying.
Margaret, what were you going to say?
That I think that it's possible to do all of that stuff without a God and without a faith.
How so?
Well, because I think that essentially the moral teachings of the Torah are enough to sustain you without the belief in God or the faith. But
What I'll challenge that with is, if you don't have the faith, then what's the foundation for the moral teachings?
I've been trying to figure out that answer to that question for some time, because it is. I mean, I like to think I choose moral a path. You know, why do I if I don't do it because God said to? And you know, from like maybe a scientific point of view, maybe it's because those are the values that my parents instilled in me, and doing something else doesn't feel right, it feels wrong. Or maybe there's a philosophical reason where I can see something like, if we don't take care of the earth, then all of this wonder and beauty we could destroy. We have that power, and I'm not going to choose that. I'm going to do what I can to keep it, because it's worth keeping and giving to our children's and the generations behind us. And that's really the best I can come up with so far as to why. Barbara, why do you? I mean,
I say I do have to kind of wrap up here in a moment,
Okay.
because I have a 1 o'clock appointment. Otherwise, I would love to keep this conversation going. But I will kind of say this much, is that the rabbis divide the mitzvot in the Torah into 2 categories. I think we've talked about this: mishpatim and chukim. Mishpatim are those things that we would have logically come up with if God had not commanded. Don't steal, don't murder, don't commit adultery. Like, we could have figured that out. Most of civil law we could have figured out on our own had God not commanded it in the Torah. The chukim, there seems to be no rational explanation for. Shabbat, kashrut, not eating chametz on Pesach. And what it seems is that those exist as a way to connect with God, to build and strengthen our faith. And that's the whole point of mitzvot generally, either mishpatim or chukim, is the idea is you do them to deepen your relationship with God. And by deepening your relationship with God, you want to do those things more. Can we figure some of this out on our own? Sure. We're not stupid. We have big brains that we can use. But a faith in God helps, one, ground us into something larger than ourselves, and two, reminds us that that we're not God, and that we do have power, but that we have to wield it with care so that we don't abuse the world around us. I do have to sign off for today. I will not be here next week, so Barbara will be fearlessly leading you into the wilderness and Parshat Midbar, Parshat Bamidbar, I should say. But wishing y'all a good and healthy week ahead. If I don't see you, Shabbat Shalom, and I'll look forward to learning with you guys in 2 weeks.
Shabbat shalom.
Actually,
Thank you.
my apologies.
Shabbat
We won't learn
shalom,
it.
everybody.
We won't learn in 2 weeks because 2 weeks will be second day of Shavuot. So we'll have to we'll reconvene and try to catch up with 2 Parshiot the following. So be well, everybody.
Thank you.
You all.
Thank you.
Kol hakavod.